Whoa. Get it on the phone, I'll beat it down. We work like slaves for real.
Oh no, yesterday was it.
13 hours?
13 hours.
13 hours completely on.
The whole
Straight.
day. Pick up 7:45.
Eating on the run.
Drop off at 9 something.
What was the best part of the day? There had to been something that you enjoyed. Yeah, I mean, sure you enjoyed the whole day, but what was the highlight?
Girl, it's almost like a blur.
I know, it's like Flash Gordon did it.
What did we do? Torre.
I can imagine
Oh,
how that must
Torre
have
was the funny. I forgot about Torre. Torre was the funny part of it. BT. Yeah, that was a little unexpected.
Yeah.
Treat.
Is there anything that you wanted to ask Linda or Linda?
Ain't he nothing?
Now how long have y'all known each other actually? Did y'all just meet recently?
She got off the elevator in DC at the Mandarin Oriental on Friday. Because the days are all melted. Friday the 28th of September.
Alright, so I mean y'all seem to click. I mean it's like
We're cool. She knows where all the food is, so I have to be her friend because she knows where all the good food
All
is.
the good food. For real.
You're right. Yes.
Like, no, trust me. We got this. Brazilian, Italian,
Right.
Chinese.
We're food lovers.
Yeah. So that works.
Yeah.
Good. Again, that I find so remarkable is that the amount of traffic you generate. You know, when I look at my website, for example, I can see what pages are being forwarded, and what the comments are, and people. Your page, along with say Maya Angelou's and some other people, are the most frequently forwarded pages, and some of the comments are interesting. One of the popular things that people like to talk about is Tyra Banks, those celebrities that position themselves one way, but in reality are something else.
Right.
So, and I think that's part of the reason why people forward the thing about Tyra Banks so often,
right.
Because it was a conflict. You know, she's saying one thing, but in reality doing something completely different.
Absolutely.
Do you see a lot of that? You know, people having a public face and then in private doing something completely different.
Well, I do. I see a lot of that, and that was part of the reason why I chose Confessions to be my first book. Because growing up, you always see Vanessa Williams is a great example of women. Especially women, but anybody, women, black women, getting to a particular point in their profession or notoriety and being pegged as one thing, a beauty queen, a wholesome actress, a God-fearing model, and then all of a sudden 20 years later, someone comes out, 5 years later, somebody comes out with like a naked picture of you in some lewd act with some girl or something, and you're like, oh, I never did that, And I didn't want to be that person. Like, that was my biggest thing, is because that's how life is. People build you up to tear you down. So I figured if I tore myself down initially and gave you everything, and you knew exactly who I was from the get-go, then when I get to that other level where I'm going, there's nothing you can say that hasn't already been said or that would shock people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And so, but that's my area of thought. I don't think most people think like I do, obviously. So people like Tyra, I think, position themselves and want to forget or deny or just not acknowledge where they've been, where they've really been in their most personal moments, and of course publicly be someone else.
Sure.
Of course, because this is, I want to give you what you need me to be, or what I want people to perceive me as. Most people don't want it to be known as who they really are. Most people don't. When you pass someone on the street, you say, "Hey, Joe, how are you?" Joe says, "I'm fine."
Right.
Joe's not fine. His wife is cheating on him. He's bankrupt. He's losing his house. He can't do his job properly. He's having, all kind of dysfunctions, and he's not going to say that to you. But he says, I'm fine.
Sure.
Because we want people to see us as being okay.
Okay.
I'm not that kind of person.
Another interesting thing that I see is when you, by exposing some of the rappers and their infidelities in particular, it's almost as if women are getting back at men for doing their wives or their significant others wrong. So for example, in this most recent book with the boxer, Antonio, where out of the blue, and I don't want to spoil the book, but out of the blue, he did something, completely unexpected.
Right.
And, and you wrote this pearl of a gem, I'll describe it. It's essentially when he was doing this, that, and the other, I wonder how,
Right. And that was the only stab in that chapter. For that chapter with Antonio, I just told the story and how great it was, and then how it turned. And right before I exited the situation, I wanted to give you just one line to sum up the entire thing. I don't need to go on and on about what it was. It was just one gem.
That one line really set it off. So from my perspective as a man reading that, I look at it as, he got what he deserved. Good for him.
Right.
And then on the other side, I'm thinking, man, but how must his wife feel? I mean, in theory, she was probably completely oblivious to his messing around.
She wasn't, because we were in newspapers as this new couple. The thing is, we were out publicly as a couple, so she was completely aware, and so it's not. He got what he deserves, true, but she got what she deserves.
Okay.
Because any woman who would still marry a man who wanted to carry on with another woman up until the day of your wedding,
right,
then you get the man that you deserve. And 4 months later, he was still calling me. And I had to blast him on my website to tell him to stop calling me publicly.
Wow.
I have 2.3 million people a month. I wanted all of them to know he'd been calling me, and then to stop calling me because he was now a married man. And so she gets what she deserves, and so does he, and I'm just glad I'm not either one of them.
Sure, well, as I said, my website gets a ton of traffic. People, it's one of the highest search terms. So when people come into my site, they're looking for information about you. And I noticed one of the chapters in the book was about MySpace, and how you actually met and was able to get a date with Eric Benet through the website, through MySpace. Did you set up your own MySpace account? And
no, well, it was everyone was like, go to MySpace, and I would never go to MySpace. Anyway, so through a series of events, I went to MySpace, and I ended up meeting people that I knew already. And then through them, meeting people that they knew.
Okay.
And so Eric and I have a lot of friends in common. And so a friend of mine said, hey, he's a film, whatever. So we ended up getting hooked up through a friend, but we started talking through MySpace.
Okay.
And then through, then we went out to lunch with each other and saw each other a few times after that. But in a roundabout way, yes. Through MySpace, I ended up going out with Eric Benet. And it wasn't a date. It was just meet me for lunch in the neighborhood.
Sure.
This wasn't a date. There's nothing romantic about it. It was just lunch.
Who else can actually use MySpace to do something like that? That's pretty remarkable.
A lot of people
how many
hook up on MySpace.
How many friends do you have now?
I'm not a MySpacer. I'm not on there. I have a personal page for people that I actually know, which only has about 8 or 9 people on it.
Wow.
People that I can't get in contact with over the phone, people that I know in other countries, that it may be easier for us to do it that way.
Okay.
But honestly, to me, MySpace is very antiquated at this point. I'm an Apple girl, so I just iChat.
Oh, really?
So it's just, I can see you, we can talk, and no matter where you are in the world, we can have a conversation, and it's faster and whatever. So MySpace to me is what I call it, a dinosaur. To me already.
Right.
Even though I know it's new. But then I have another page for fans and people who want to talk to me that I don't know, but just the women. I deny all the men and I only accept the women.
All right. What's the URL for that? So.
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't know because I'm not on it.
All right.
I don't know what it is.
Is that something that I could find if I surf the net?
Yeah, if you pull me up, there's usually imposters pretending to be me.
Okay.
Which is great because I can have them removed at any time. So I go in, I have to email MySpace and tell Tom to take them off. But there's few of them that you can tell are really me. And I'm not quite sure what the URL is.
The other commentary I see, and looking at some of I collected some, I actually asked my discussion board participants to pose some questions, and there were several themes that came out. I won't ask any of the specific questions, but one of the things that came out of it was the fact that someone mentioned that most men, if put in a situation, will cheat on their wives or cheat on their girlfriends. Or do you find that? Because to me, it's, you think like Anne Frank, all people are basically good, and after reading some of these stories, it's like, do you come away with that sense that people are innately good, or are they easily corruptible? What do you think?
I think that in terms between men and women are very different and are wired very differently. Men, in all species of animal, except for like one form of monkey, which is actually, no, there is a form of monkey that only picks one partner for life and makes with that partner for life. But I think we forget that we're animals and we're mammals, and I'm huge on like Animal Planet, and I watch, like, I'm obsessed with animals. Men in every animal species usually have more than one partner at a time. And I think that's something that's innate because we are animals, and the women of that particular species usually holds the family down and is like the matriarch and will go out and support the man in whatever his ventures are, whether it be other women and whatnot. Humans have a harder time with that because we're decision makers. We don't just do things off of instinct, so we actually think sometimes too much.
Sure.
And that's actually our gift and our curse, is that we have brains and that allow us to think and decipher things,
right,
and have emotions and things like that, which animals tend not to have the same way that we do.
Okay.
So I think that I hate to say that all men would cheat, because it's not true.
Sure.
I think that women are so differently wired and are not socialized amongst men that they don't know how men work. So they easily drive their men away. And it's not their fault, but it is their responsibility to realize this, that when we're growing up, the girls are on one side, the boys are on the other, Tonka toys and Barbies. And you never mesh the two. Until one day, your body is changing and your voice deepens, and all of a sudden you're supposed to be together. And you're like, well, this is like an alien to me. I don't know what this human being thinks, feels, or reacts to. So I think that what happens is that women don't know how to make men want to stay.
Okay.
And so, like, in my relationship, I tell my fiance that he is more than welcomed to have relationships outside the marriage. And he's okay, and I'm okay with that.
Interesting. So but
let me tell you what happens.
Go ahead.
So then he looks at me and says, why? What are you doing? Where are you going? I ain't going nowhere. I'm staying right here. And it's this form of reverse psychology.
Sure.
But I also tell him, you're mostly allowed. You can have whatever girlfriends you want. Sometimes he'll play and say, I'm gonna go get me a girlfriend. Okay, I'll get you a girlfriend, honey. I don't know where you're gonna sleep afterwards, but go ahead and get you a girlfriend. And I don't tell him that he can't do it. You can do it.
Okay.
But there are consequences to that. But I don't want to say, well, you can't. No, go out with your friends, go to a club, and when you come back, if I'm not here,
You'll know why.
You'll know why. And so a man, you have to allow him to make the choice. What happens is women make the choice for you, and then you rebel against that. Allow the man to make the choice. I don't think that most men would cheat if women knew how to make them not want to.
Looking at the divorce rate, looking at people who are unsatisfactory with marriages, what other tips or clues can you give to people to help maintain them?
And it's funny coming from me, I think that it's ironic, but I think that it's very telling because I've been with other people's husbands, number one. And all my friends are men, number two. So when your husband is out with his boys, I'm usually one of the boys. And they're telling me about you and what they don't like about you as a wife or as a girlfriend and what bothers them the most. I think the most important thing that women should do, besides get themselves in correct order, emotionally, physically, financially, educationally, career-wise, and in all other areas, is to equate themselves with the way a man thinks and feels. That even if it takes you reading books written by men about men, to understand that men are not like us, and we cannot make you guys women.
Right.
We try to make you want a man, but you want to make him into a woman, and feminize him. And I think that we both, and even men, need to come a little over to the feminine side and women to the masculine side and meet somewhere in the middle. And then we begin to understand each other more. And to me, that's the most important thing after a woman getting herself together. I think in general, men usually have it right, and women cloud things with emotion and baggage and talking. We talk a lot. We talk more. And we listen less in general. And I feel like if we paid more attention to you guys, we would learn more.
Interesting. Is there something that men can do in order to strengthen relationships?
I think men need to hang out with the women in their families.
Okay.
Men need to, and this goes for both sides, hang out with the opposite sex more. Talk to your mom more. You know, if it's your mom and your aunts and your sisters and they're all having girl talk, usually men go to the other room and watch football.
Right.
You need to be in there seeing what they're talking about. Because they're talking about you. And you need to know how they think and feel about you and their homes and their children and their jobs and what their psyche is. And the same thing with women. When your husband goes and he's watching a game, we usually go do something else. I'm going to do the laundry. I sit and watch the game. I hate football. I hate all sports. But I'm going to sit and watch the game. Just because it allows me to learn more about him as an individual, how he thinks, his thinking process. And I've always been like that since I was a little girl, just always hanging out with the boys and listening to what they're saying.
Good.
You know, so I think we need to visit the other side because we're like aliens to
being a celebrity, with your past, being in the public eye constantly, how are you shielding your son from that? Or are you shielding him?
Yeah, easily. It's easy to shield a 9-year-old.
Okay.
It's like it's not, and that question is so strict. But you know what? I understand too because most people's 9-year-olds are like 39 in their head. And our kids are so much older than they should be.
Sure.
But my son doesn't have access to the things that other people give their kids access to. Your children don't gain access to things. You give them access to things.
Right.
You know, his TV only has 3 channels. Nickelodeon, Disney, and I think Cartoon Network. Like, no other channels show up.
Good.
Because we have it all blocked, but those are only 3 channels he needs. What else do you need to know? You're not.
Right.
You know, and he's in after school programs, he's in study programs afterward, he has testing after school. So he's in school from 7 in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, almost all day long. By the time I pick him up, he's so tuckered out, he doesn't want to do, he has the old-fashioned toys that I used to have. You know, I played with G.I. Joes, and so he still has all this G.I. Joes, and now it's Power Rangers, whatever it is, but he does action figures, and he doesn't have access to the internet. You know, he has access to the computer for writing, and you know, he can draw and do certain things on his computer, different programs for his computer, but he doesn't have access to the internet.
Okay.
So he has programs that he can go in and access,
Right.
Different educational games he can access through his computer, but he doesn't have internet because he's 9.
Sure.
What does he need on the internet? What's on there?
Okay.
If you have a question, I have a library in my house. So when I look up something, to the library.
Okay.
You know, go check out a book in the library and read it. So it's easy for me to shelter my son because I've raised him the way my grandmother raised us, the way she intended to raise us. And with her still being alive, I can still call her and ask her questions and her tell me things and what's right. But a very old-fashioned, very still island girl. This, you know, kids didn't look at TV and we didn't have video games and we didn't. We had like 3 channels back then. They were all in black and white.
In Harlem. Did you get a chance to look around the neighborhood? Are you familiar with Harlem at all? Or?
I'm not familiar with Harlem or New York at all. I used to live here. We lived in Queens when I was young. My father lived in North Islip in Long Island, and I've never been acquainted really. Like I couldn't find my way around if you paid me. And that's okay with me. I don't particularly enjoy New York. When I was younger, when I was a kid, I used to love coming to the city. I used to love all the horns and all the noise. I used to just love the energy. My mother worked at the Altmans. I used to love walking down to Purdue and getting some chicken. And then my father was a buyer a long time ago for the men's department in Bloomingdale's.
Sure.
I used to love going through Bloomingdale's in Manhattan and going through the stuff and the smell and the subways but no, you know, now that I've lived in Los Angeles for almost 8 years now, there's something, and before that I lived in Scottsdale, Arizona. Before that I lived in Florida. So I'm accustomed to resort living. It's like my whole life is like a resort,
Right.
you know, and I like that better.
Great. I can't really say too much more than that.
Thank you, I
It was really
appreciate it.
nice speaking to you.
Speak with you as
And
well.
this is Troy with Karrine Steffans, representing African American Literature Book Club, AALBC.com. Please visit our website that you'll see at the bottom of this screen when I finish editing. But again, it was a pleasure.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's always men, women, equally old and young. It's always
the whole,
white, black. It's always
even
a gamut.
in Harlem, it was.
Oh yeah, there were white folks. You know Harlem is going through a renaissance.
Well, I live in Harlem, so I know.
The Renaissance people came out.
That's interesting. That's wow.
Yeah, I'm always surprised as wow. There's grandmothers and mothers and bring their kids, young kids to teenagers. There's always like I can never guess, who's gonna come. So there's always a bunch of people.
I mean, you can't be a New York Times bestselling author and not sell across the spectrum of readers. And I'm sure this book, like I was telling Linda earlier, this book wasn't even out, and it was the second best-selling book on the site. I mean, it wasn't even out
right.
yet.
Even on the New York Times has it at number 3 in pre-orders, and Bill Clinton was like number 9. Only person he can't beat is Joel Osteen. He's coming out next month, and I know everyone's like, just get me that number 1 spot before Joel comes. When Joel comes, it's over for everybody.
All right, so this is queued up to be a New York Times bestseller, right?
Yeah, I think they're gonna find out today.